Last week, I watched two videos. The first video I watched was produced by a gentleman called Judson Sikot.
What I want to tell the Ambazonian people today is that I am pro-life. I am that one that wants to fight for the people of Ambazonia, irrespective of which affiliation. I come here today to tell you that I had done my best to fight for the people of that were or alleged to have been killed in Bui. And let me address Dr. Ayaba. He said a lot of issues. But I want to, first of all, say that activists can say a lot of things. They can make noise, they can abuse everybody. They can threaten everybody. But it is different when you, a leader, comes out to threaten people.
I listened to the video from beginning to end. As I listened to it, I was reflecting on it. Then shortly after that, a few days later, I watched a video presented by Eric Tato.
And I see all those expenses the way Sako do for TD Bank. TD Bank, this thing that way, when I see one time, man, you go swap $1,300 and something dollars, $1,800 and something. So when I see man, you go swap card for $4,000 and so on and so forth. I want to say, all man will make sure, say, some people they say, make a zoom the document, say, I will put the document outside. I'll put it outside now. The most this way I can do it. So the document will, after today, all this documentation will be available, and I will see which way Sako really do it for we way. Now, why that way every day I cry, and I want to meet all man to say my pains and be too deep, because now point the way I support them to do everything humanly possible for you to push this revolution ahead. I see a different man. I would understand to say Sako is not a good man. Sako now a planted La Republic agent. Now Bank of America that I don't show now. I will see show now Mona see him. Now see why way every day I cry. I need to cry because I hate Sako now, because the corruption, the embezzlement, the thievery.
These guys, in their commentaries, revealed things to me which I speculated about, I've talked about before. More on general knowledge, on little stories that I've heard here and there, and from my own personal experience with some of the people that these two gentlemen referenced in their presentations and situations. I mean, we all come from Ambazonia, and we know ourselves, we know our story, we know our people, we know who our people are. What I heard from these individuals created a marker for me, a marker that this is a turning point in our history. This struggle that we are in right now is a struggle that we cannot afford to lose. It's such an honorable, it's such a noble struggle that encompasses everything. It encompasses our humanity that we cannot afford to not win. I don't know why some people are involved in this struggle and why they do the things they do. Personally, I got involved in the story because I went to CPC Bali. CPC Bali did us really well. They taught us very well. They taught us how to be resourceful, how to go out there and be leaders. You know, Bali at the time, I don't know what it is now, but at the time, most of the people in government and very serious professions, they all came from Bali. So as Bobans, we were very proud. And so when we came out of that school, we came out with a very proud history. I wrote GCE once, went to Bambili, Kas Bambili, at the time very prestigious, to go there. I wrote my A levels once, then went to University of Yaoundé. The spirit that we developed in Bali was a very competitive spirit. So by the time you write your GC, you know you are good. And you pass your A levels, you are good, because A levels was a big thing. I don't know what it is now, but it was a big thing. And so when you write it once and you pass, you have pretty much confidence in yourself that you'll be whatever you want to be in your life. And so I was very happy to be admitted at the University of Yaoundé. I went there. I was a boursier, what they used to call, you had a bourse. And bourse meant you were paid an allowance to go to school. So, but my disappointment started happening when I went to class, and I sat in class, and I felt like I was in some foreign country. And when I felt that way, I started asking a lot of questions. See, and when I say I felt like I was in a foreign country, was because our instructions were in French. I went to do law. Apart from my English law, everything else was in French. I was totally lost. And a situation where I would say people used to look at my papers or talk with me so that we come up with the answers, or I had confidence that I did not need to depend on other people to do well. I found myself looking at other people's papers, asking people what are they saying, and then after school I struggled to get notes in order to pass my exams. That was frustrating. And the frustration did not end in class. When you went out of campus, not out of campus, forget about that. Out of campus was worse. Because we went out of campus to look for jobs and things like that. Obviously, you not have a job. So, but when you went out of class, on campus, if somebody slid and fell, you hear shouts of Anglo, Anglo, Anglo. In the refectory, if somebody dropped a spoon, Anglo, Anglo, Anglo. In class, if somebody dropped something, well, you get it now. So, I was lucky that after the first year, I didn't have to go back there. I loved the country. When I came to America, the first thing I was curious about, when we wrote GCE, it was the same GCE that was written by British kids. It used to be London GCE. So we knew that we're writing the same exam as English students were writing. And we passed. So we did not look at that. So I did not come to America with the sense that we're inferior or that white people were better than us. No, absolutely not. And so when I came to the United States, the first thing that I was curious about is what is it that these people do in order to beat us, in order to create this wonderful country for themselves. What is it that they do to dominate the world? What is it that white people as a whole do to dominate the world? Because I know the things that they did to dominate the world was not the fact that they were intelligent, because we were equally intelligent. So I knew that it was something different. And so I was observing very carefully. And I noticed that it was cultural. That's why I started looking for answers. I said, what is it that they do to produce that we don't do? Because it is not passing exams. It is not understanding your lessons. No, we do all of that, but we are not producing. So why? So I noticed that that speaking the truth in the United States was something for granted. I noticed that they did not respect. I want to say this carefully because it may come out wrong, but if it comes out wrong, so be it. I just want to be very honest in this conversation. I noticed that they did not pay attention to title, to age, to they paid attention to merit. And when I went to class, we did not call our professors, most of them who were doctors, we did not say doctor this, doctor that. No, we just call them Pete, John, professor. Professor was the most respectful name that we use. But otherwise, you interacted with them more like friends, but definitely as leaders, definitely as our instructors. But that aura that we give our elders back home, or we give the doctors or people who, no, none of that was there. The central idea was worshiping reason. We worship reason. We worshiped intelligence. We asked questions that made us better. There was that interchange that was very natural with no barriers. That's the one thing I started looking. The other thing was that you can have a real debate. Everything was questionable. And when you question it, you look for answers. And you moved ahead or not move ahead, had it right or wrong, by giving the right answer. The right answer was very, very important. And so I looked at all of that. Obviously, I'm an economic student. I took all of that in. Americans make it simple. They don't make it there's nothing that Americans do that's complicated. They always boil things down to its simplest form. Even in writing, it is said that, we were taught that if you're going to communicate in public, communicate at high school level. Because when you are communicating to the public, you are trying to reach as the widest audience as possible. So making it more complicated doesn't help you. So explain things, make your public writing as simple as possible. So I did all of that. I was concentrating on all these other things other than intelligence, because I know we have that. So I was trying to see why these people accomplish so much. And I just realized that they just allow nature to take its course. They don't intervene. They don't put obstacles. Everything that they do, they make it simple. If you have a question, you ask and they give you the answer. If you have a criticism, put it forward, and whoever you're criticizing or whoever you are questioning, their responsibility is not to yell at you, it's not to put you down, but it's to give a response. That's the only thing that will be accepted. If you came and did any other thing but respond to the question, you are laughed at, and to be honest, very soon you will disappear out of the conversation or out of the public arena. Nobody pays attention to you again. So those are some of the things that I soaked in, looking at why these people accomplish and we don't. When I look at our own system, like back home, as a colonized people, it's like, who sets up a system where a child grows up, does his homework well, passes exams well, and then suddenly it became an obstacle. You do everything that you're asked to do, but you don't succeed. And for us, for me in particular, let me talk about myself. I went to Bambly because I passed my O level, because I passed my first school living certificate, because I paid attention in school. In all of these, I learned in English. Then I go to Yaoundé, they threw me into a situation where nobody really cares. Nobody really cares whether I succeed or not. So And then when you're growing up, the fact that somebody is older than you becomes very important. In tradition, actually, you're supposed to listen to that person. So I started re-examining our own culture and judging it based on what I see in the United States. And I started looking at it, and I see some of the things that in our culture we think they're virtues as becoming obstacles. Okay? And that, to be honest, I started redefining culture. That a culture is what a people do to accomplish what they accomplish. And in that culture, what is valued is what is promoted. Okay? So in our culture, we honor age, we honor, I don't want to say academic accomplishments. We honor, I don't want to go through all of that. That could be a different video, but I want to say that we honor things that do not enhance us, that do not promote us. And even if we say they are our culture, and I came to this by this comparison, even we honor what we say is our culture, it makes us weak. And so even if we love it, we can, because people used to say, oh, it's our culture, so, we have to honor our culture, blah, blah, blah. And I say, no. If you want to honor your culture, do what makes you strong so that you prevent other people from coming to invade that culture and take it over from you. Because that's what we've done to ourselves. We worship things that allowed our society to be vulnerable, and so colonizers come in, they colonize us, and then decide who our chiefs will be, what we will practice, what religion will, and they just destroy everything, and then begin to make us become part of their they use us to build their own dreams, and our own dreams disappear. So that whole argument that oh, it's our culture, let's and I don't buy it. I don't buy it. Because that culture in a very competitive world doesn't make you strong, then you don't have a culture, because it could be taken away from you anytime. But another thing, let me say another thing about that. What we call European culture, no. If you read back 500 years, 300 years ago, no. What you call Western values or Western culture, they didn't have it. But their society kept changing based on the solutions they were providing for the problems they have at the time. So that's how their society changed. And they, as the society changed, they gained more power. As they gained more power, they came and dominated the whole world, including us. We need to be having conversations with ourselves and challenging ourselves and challenging all the bull that we worship that doesn't help us. So that's why I got involved. If you see, everything I do as an adult these days is to tell our people, is to empower our people, is to empower our people. And we will empower our people by being simple, allow ideas to move forward, because those are the things that would empower us. And when we do, then we try to accomplish as the rest of the world. There's a history that says that the Japanese used to be very, very proud of their culture and very proud of their of themselves as a people. Okay? Until this American admiral came, Commodore Perry, wanted to do trade with the Japanese. The Japanese say, hell no, we'll not do any trade with you. We are fine where we are. Commodore Perry stood in the ocean, bombed Japan, bombed them to submission, and forced them to come and do trade with the Americans. The Japanese could have been very angry and call Americans names, call Commodore Perry names. No, they didn't do that. What they did instead was they're like, wow. They stood in the sea and defeated us. They didn't come on. We didn't pull our samurai. They didn't even give us a chance to pull our samurais. It's written that after that experience, it took Japan 50 years to transform and become a totally different country, which results to what they are today, a power and a scientific and economic power in the world. It was actually a military power also until the Second World War. And they, by choice, decided that being an economic power is the way of the future. And so what we Africans just need to do is incorporate the things that have made other societies go forward. The least to do is to incorporate it and get the enemies of our development. And the enemies of our development are the foreigners that come to Africa and get rich while we remain poor. So I've always believed that we can accomplish these things. To be honest with you, even in this country, if you look at Africans don't behave sheepishly. Africans don't behave as minorities in America. And some American friends have approached me and they're like, what makes you so confident? What makes you guys so what you are? And I tell them that, look, we grew up in our countries not as minorities. So if there's any difference between us and any other minorities that grew up in this community as minorities, grew up in the United States as minorities, and therefore had this sense that, their look or their ethnicity is competing with another, I said, no. We grew up in Africa, and there's this Bible chapter which is say God created man in his image. When we hear God created man in his image, we are not thinking of any other image than this black skin. That's the skin of God. That's the image of God. And so when we come and we see other people, we realize that they are more accomplished than us, but we know who we are. And so when I listen to Mr. Sikot and I listen to Mr. Tato, the one thing they did well is that they brought the truth as patriots of Ambazonia. And when I listened to it, I wanted to do a piece. In fact, I shot a piece. I shot most of it yesterday. And as I started listening to them again, as I was incorporating this in my own commentary, I decided to stop. I wanted to give myself space and think about what these two gentlemen said. And deliberate on it a little more, reflect on it a little more before I make a comment on what they're doing. I'll tell you certain people in our politics that I worship a lot. I made a little note to myself. And I want to tell you about this because we're talking about politics. And my conversation and this reflection is because it's motivated by what is going on in our revolution. Because the revolution of the people of Ambazonia, what the people of Ambazonia are doing, this struggle that we are in right now is a struggle that we cannot afford to lose. It's such an honorable, it's such a noble struggle. And so if you look at it in that perspective, you start seeing why some of us have put a lot of time, because to do videos and documentaries and spend so much of your life doing that, to educate our people, it was all to bring us where we were in 2017. And if you've heard me condemn the whole idea of government, it's because I didn't think that was going to lead us to the victory that we need so badly. And And what Mr. Tato and Mr. Sikot addressed were very important issues that are coming as a result of the politicization of our liberation. And I think that they are coming out it's a marker. It's a marker for this struggle. I'm going to end it there until I actually do the piece. I want to say something about some of the people that I admire in our struggle. I'm going to start with Justice Nyon Wakai. You see, when I left Bambili, I went to Yaoundé the following year. Then the following year, I was going to move to. I was going to leave the country. My family has already decided that I will not go back to Yaoundé, and I spent that year out of school, but I went to teach in Bali. And I met Justice Nyon Wakai. He came down and we had a staff meeting, and he was part of that staff meeting. And after the staff meeting, he invited me to visit him when I went to Bamenda. And when I went, I visited him. He gave me. This is a man who respects even the youngest. As young as I was and as big as he was, he gave me a lot of respect. He gave me a dedicated time in his back office, and we just had conversation. I felt very honored because young as I was and up there as he was, I didn't think anybody would give me that kind of time. And so I admire that man a lot. But the important thing that he did that was a life changer for me was that when he gave me a ride back to town. And as we're driving back, I remember him telling me, or I heard him tell me that we are living in this country, meaning in southern Cameroon, in Ambazonia, as a colonized people. That the people of La Republic are treating us as a colonized people. I was shocked. I was shocked when I heard that. Because I looked at him as a man of the establishment, as part of the people who are enjoying the country, or enjoying and this is after I've already experienced my 1 year in Bali, in Yaoundé. So you can tell. Because there's one thing I didn't tell you about my experience in Yaoundé. As I sat in class and I was hearing all this Chinese, this Greek going over, all this gibberish going over my head in the name of lectures, I kept wondering, how did I find myself in this situation? What did I do wrong? Where did we go wrong? That is when my political instincts got aroused. I blame the Fonchas, the Endelis, all the politicians that did what they did to find out, to end up with me feeling a foreigner in my own country, or my own supposed country. Okay? So when Justice Nyon Wakai was expressing the same feeling that I felt when I was in Yaoundé, I had a lot of respect for him. And he became one of us. He became part of me in a way that I did not let go until he died. So that's one of the people I admired. Obviously, you can tell that he was not kidding, because he had that conversation with me. He became part of SDF, part of the opposition. He was arrested. And until he died, He died as a rebel in a system that was not humane to us. I have a lot of respect for him. The other person that I had a lot of respect for was John Frundi. When John Frundi and the SDF started, I wasn't part of that. I was already out of the country. But I watched videos and I listened to what John Frundi was saying at the Bamenda Stadium. It's like, wow, in that terrorized country, that man is saying what he's saying and challenging Paul Biya the way he did. I became a member of the SDF because of that. With time, obviously, Frundi, not too long from then actually, I lost all the respect I had for him. I lost all of it. You know, I'll tell you where I actually lost respect for Frundi. If you go and look, I've made a lot of effort to have all our political leaders on video. Frundi is one of those people I never had a personal interview with him, but I had opportunities. I filmed him in many occasions, but I never granted him that interview. In 1996, I went to Chicago where he came, and I was ready we had all our cameras ready to give him one of those interviews. And I sat in a hotel. At the time, remember they had what they call, it was Union for Change at the time, where there were a lot of Francophones who were part of SDF and all that mix-up that was going on then. And I sat in a hotel room where Frundi was. Well, he wasn't there, but the hotel room was where we were going to have a meeting. No, where they were staying, and I was going to have this interview with him. And as we sat in that room, the conversation that was going on between these top leaders of the SDF was that they have told the French that they are going to support, or they are going to take care of their interests in La République du Cameroon if the French can let them take power, because they believe that they won the election and they can stand another election and win. So they realized that the French were the obstacle to them taking over power, and so they had met the French and tell them, you know, support us to take over power. And I was so demoralized. I was so demoralized that my cameras did not leave the car. We left. And ever since that, I stopped being a member of the SDF. Because I do believe that we are never going to get our power by begging. We will not. Because the person who is stepping on your toe, they know that they're stepping on your toe. Or the person that is stealing your lunch knows that they're stealing your lunch. And if you think that you're going to tell them not to steal your lunch or not to step on your toe by begging them, you're only telling them to step on your toe more, because you are showing a lot of weakness. I'm more in the mindset of Patrick Henry, which says, give me liberty or give me death. And most of the countries, most of the people who have progressed in this world are people who have said, give me liberty or give me death. They are not people who beg for their liberty. So I was done with the SDF. I was done with the SDF. That's how John Frundi fell off my chart. The other person that I've respected a lot was Gojidinka. I went to Washington, D.C. in 1990, and I listened to Siga Sanga and Mr. Mukong give a presentation during one CAMSA meeting, and I listened to them, and I said, these people need to come to Minnesota and talk to our people too. At the time, SDF was just beginning to go, and I had bought their message hook and sinker. So I sponsored the trip. Dr. Asanga and Mukong were to come to town, I think 2 weeks later. 1 week before they came, Dr. Asanga called me and said, well, you know, they're sitting here with Gojidinka, and he wants to come too. At the time, I did not know him. I said, fine. So we just added him on the ticket, and they flew to town. And when they flew to town, there was they show. So we organized all our people at the University of Minnesota, and they all came, and there was this presentation, like they did in Washington. The first to speak was Gojidinka, and that's when he talked about Ambazonia. I heard about Ambazonia for the first time, and I listened to that. And that was so inspirational that when Dr. Siga Sanga spoke and Mr. Mukong spoke, I can tell you, Dr. Gojidinka carried the day. All the questioning was focused on this idea of Ambazonia. Some of you have seen some of the video, you've seen some of the clips. And but what that did for me, was that was the first time I saw an Ambazonian, a Southern Cameroonian, stand and speak with pride and speak forcefully against what was going on in our lives and in the lives of our people as Southern Cameroonians. For the first time, I saw one of our leaders who wasn't begging, who wasn't timid in speaking the truth. In fact, after that, I went out to the parking lot and I told Gojidinka, I said, you know, for the first time in my life, I can point to you and tell anybody that that's my leader. He spoke English well. He wasn't half educated like the rest have been. Because if you notice, those who stood up and spoke for us were half educated. They couldn't speak English well. They couldn't articulate well. And all of that happened because those who were educated were basically were spending their time pleasing the colonizer to have jobs. And so we are left with the Fonchas and in fact, I think the era of the Fonchas were the last to actually speak up, because after that, there was no leader for us anymore. So I told Gojidinka I was very proud. And since then, we did a lot of work. And some of you have seen some of the work, some of the interviews that I've done with Gojidinka. When 2017 happened, we both were very happy that we recorded all of that to share with our people. And I think it went a long way to educate our people. The other person that I respected a lot was Professor Carson Anyangwe. This is a man who I look at him like a man who, the same as Gojidinka, who had the opportunity to play the game that everybody else was playing, play the stomach politics, and live his life and die and then leave us with the prom. But he spoke up. did a lot of writing, traveled a lot. I was even more impressed when we had some projects that we were doing here, and he would send money from Africa. I have I've always known that money and home country was one way. We send the money from here back there. But Dr. Carson Anyangwe actually sent us money, and I'm not talking small money. It wasn't small change. He sent it. Now that's a patriot who, he's wherever the struggle was, he would show up. He would educate. He would clarify. He would do anything. He would sleep anywhere for this struggle. I respect him a lot. Then another person who I had a lot of respect for was Barrister Harmony Bobga Mouton. I saw him on Equinox, and he laid the argument. He challenged La Republique, challenged their colonization of our people. He challenged them publicly on television in a way that I'm like, wow, this is another Frundi moment. You know what I mean by a Frundi moment. And since then, to be honest with you, when I came back at that time, because you're talking right now in 2016, 2017, people were talking of SCNC here, and I'm like, I don't want to hear of NCNC. There is something happening on the ground. We need to support the lawyers. And this was coming from a long history of looking for relationships on the ground, and the people who showed up were people who wanted to be funded abroad. They wanted to be funded. And so sometimes you were a little confused whether are these people using the struggle of the people of Southern Cameroons to make money, or were they really about the struggle? I also read where lawyer Bobga had written that they don't want any support from abroad, because they said any money that comes from abroad would create division in their ranks, and the fight would be about the money and not the struggle anymore. I was very impressed I was so impressed when I heard that, because the history was that you would see groups of form, and when money came from abroad to support them, shortly after you see another member of that group say, oh, I have formed my own group now. Send us money. I am the leader of my group now. Oh, the other guy who you talked to, he was a leader, but I am my own leader now. I have my own group. So when I heard lawyer Bobga say, we don't want money from abroad, and like, these are the ultimate allies that the activists abroad who are in the diaspora have been looking for on the ground. People who had the education, they understand the system, they can foot their own bills, and they're willing to fight. So that's where lawyer Bobga became one of my heroes. I will add Barrister Agwobala. And I'll tell you, in that whole conversation, I used to listen to Agwobala on television too, but I didn't see the anger and the strong pronunciations which I saw with Barrister Bobga. So I noticed Barrister Bobga, Agwobala, but he did not leave an impression with me like Bobga did. But I tell you, when I was impressed, and Agwobala became one of my heroes. It was when I listened to that New Year's speech that he gave. I think that was 2000, I can't remember, 2016 or 2017, as the leader of the consortium. Amazing speech. Amazing speech. He defined our problems and all the games they've been playing with us in order to subdue us, in order to make us second-class citizens in our own country. Actually, third-class citizens, because in La République, Francophones are actually the second-class citizen in the French Empire, because the French citizens in Cameroon are the ultimate citizens. They don't pay taxes. They get everything they want. They import without. They don't pay anything. They just come and go as they want. So the Francophones are second-class citizens, and we were third-class citizens, living in the colony of the colony. And Agobala, in that speech, nailed it. Even till today, when he started talking about what was that thing he said? He talked about I've forgotten how he framed it, but he talked about us having independence or internal self-determination. When he started talking about internal self-determination, I knew that was not. I knew having gone to jail, he had to reach some compromises to come out. Especially if he wanted to remain in Cameroon, he had to start talking about like that. Even though he says he's a federalist, and no, you don't come and define what you define in that speech, and then go back to say you're a federalist. Then you're not real. But I know he's smarter than that, and so he remains my hero. But he's being expedient in his pronouncement now because he wants to continue living in the place. That's my conclusion. I could be wrong, but he remains an important person in our struggle, and I respect him a lot because he contributed even in that single definition of our problems. Now I want to talk about Cho Ayaba and Ben Wana. Cho Ayaba and Ben Wana, I respect them. The respect I have for them, I need to define this very carefully. But these were two people who, when we were talking about our problems, and there were all these arguments between SCNC and Ambazonia going on in the United States, and these two were feuding, and we were in there in the 90s and early 2000s. There were always these two guys who used to come on our forums and write from Germany. They came now and then, but they used to speak clearly. They used to speak very clearly. And I took note of that. Because they were speaking the language of fighting for our liberation the way men do. The way human beings who have been subjugated do. And so I was with them. Then, obviously, Ben Wana moved to the United States. Respected him. Where I really started finding problems with the talk and the doing, or with the talk and the strategy, was that these guys haven't lived in the system and rebelled against it, understood our problems very well. They know how to articulate it. But when it came to fighting the system, that's when there was a lot of naivety. But it seemed to me that they became the Southern Cameroon's Youth League by rebelling against the SCNC. And so their Southern Cameroon Youth League came out of rebellion. And obviously you cannot rebel without posturing. And I see that posturing carrying on until today. But still with that language that one defines our problem really well, but when it came to the execution, there was a lot of naivety, there's a lot of posturing, and it's almost like deceiving. Because these were people who came out and were out of the University of Boya, where they had their problems, and they talked about fighting the system when there was really no way to fight the system the way they were talking about. And it's been the same till today. And so in my whole knowing them, there was a lot of marketing going on. There's a lot of blowing up of little things, like if there was a flag that was planted in Boya, it became like a victory. And then all this thing about taking ownership of things that they did not do became part of that whole facade. And I took note of that. And so, but we were in spirit in terms of fighting the evil that is in our society, fighting the enemies of our people. And my thing with them was that they did not have the ground connection. All their members on the ground were decimated, or I don't know what members they had. But there was never a victory. And when you talk about strategies that could succeed, no, they're like, no, we're going to take the ground, but there was never a way of taking the ground. And so when 2016 came and there was a groundswell, and the lawyers started talking the way they were doing, I remember having a conversation with Ben that we should support these people. We should support the lawyers. That is the natural ally we should support. He said, no, we again. I'm like, no. Anything short of supporting the lawyers and the teachers and the big C's who have created this groundswell and they're doing a wonderful job will be usurping. And I remember using the word, it will be usurping their powers. It will be usurping their position. It will be challenging them. And we have tried to do what they're doing now on the ground for decades. It didn't succeed. So they have succeeded. All we need to do is support them. That is where we break up. And they became, as far as I'm concerned, part of the problem in our struggle. Now, I want to say something about Sako. I first saw Sako and heard him on a debate show where he was sitting there with Barrister Hamini Bobga and other panelists. Obviously, Bobga is a lawyer. He can articulate very well. They were all doctors. Sako was introduced as a doctor. he was he was saying the right things and 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 putting up the arguments that we expect our people to put. But I always had a problem with him with his articulation. And this is so true, because I have always paid attention to people who represent us. And like I say, it's because we have, growing up, I never saw any leadership for us. And so when people are out there in the public, I listen very carefully, and I want to make sure that and I'm very proud when they do good work for us, because they're not only representing themselves, they're representing all of us. And so the only little thing that I took note of was that he wasn't articulating very well or as smoothly as I expected. And I wasn't, so that's all I noticed. And then he started his Dr. Common Sense. I didn't used to listen to him very well, because I was busy doing my own thing. Then they appointed him. Then obviously Siseko and the rest were picked up. The people that Siseko appointed in his cabinet, I didn't pay attention. I didn't know these people. And I was already not paying attention because I thought the whole thing was being lost. And the thing, for me, it was being lost right from when Bo Herbert came and talked about forming a government and prime ministers. Look, that whole thing rubbed me the wrong way. It rubbed me totally the wrong way, because Kochidika had formed a government, SCNC USA had formed a government, the SCYL had formed a government. When we talk of the IG, the SCYL were the first to form an IG, an interim government. I know very well because I was part of it. And then after that, there was another government called Restoration Government at the time, led by Carlson Anyangwe. And so that idea of government was just a joke. A joke. I was looking for a movement where we start actually. One of the things that I believe, and I've already said that, but I will say it again. One of the things that I believe is that we are very intelligent people, we are very resourceful, and we can take these people at an intelligent level and we will win. Let them, but we need to be realistic. We take what we have and we can do something with it, but we have to be realistic. And so when people start coming up with ideas that are bogus or doing things that are more pretentious things, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. And so that is where I am with all these people. All the people I have mentioned. Let me finish with Sako. So when Sako ended up becoming the assistant, I think AIP, when Siseko was picked up and he became the man who replaced him, I went with him. I called him and we had great conversations. And I actually started, that was in the early days. And I called one day and we had a good long conversation. And he told me at the time that this thing about fighting La Republique, that he is not about this thing fighting La Republique. I remember him saying that if we kill bees, La Republique can always add more. So us fighting that is not, he does not really buy that, but that he is about economic sabotage. That they are in our country because of what they get. And if we sabotage the economic part of it, will be more successful. And I bought into it. And so when he came on and said, give me 2 million and I will deliver, I totally believe the guy. We even produced we even produced a commercial to support my trip to Boya. And reading from the comments, yes, I'm sure it raised a lot of money. I'm very sure about that. Now, talking about that, I want to mention this Irene Gua. I remember after we finished the video and it was playing out there, I talked to a few people who were involved in my trip to Boya, and I wanted to know first what they thought about the commercial and how it is working for the how it's helping the project. When I called this lady, she wanted to know how much I've contributed to my trip to Boya. I said, I can't remember what my response was, but I found that question so out of place. And I remember she taking on Rogers at the time hadn't totally hated the man or showed his hate for the man to me. And told me how he was an executive of an airlines and all of that, and that he's only interested in talking to people who give money. That's what I remember about that. But so when I hear some of the stories today, but this is what these are my early. So she's the only person that I've mentioned who I talked to, and the first thing that came to me was, this is not a nice person. This is not a nice person. Because some of the greatest contributions in this struggle were not made in dollars and cents. And if you find people who are more concerned about the dollars and cents rather than the people in the struggle who can actually make things happen, know that they have their head in the wrong place. And I think we can see now, looking back, that was a good pointer at the time that that's the wrong person. Now, so after we did some of that work, we were waiting for the results. I started falling out with Sako when he started throwing out people, making very bad stories about people that I know very well. And I started having a problem with him. And obviously, things only got worse because my trip to Boya money disappeared and all these other things. And then people actually started writing. And then I started reading. Like journalists who are writing that the man is a fraud. His education is fraudulent. He's a 419. He's a con man. And then some of the things that I noticed with him in the early days started making more sense to me. So I just wanted to share my thinking about this because I am frustrated. I think what Mr. Sikot and Mr. Tato are doing, they're putting a marker. And it made me question, why am I in this struggle? And then started questioning, why are other people in this struggle? And I think you should be asking yourself, why are you in this struggle? Are you in this struggle to liberate Ambazonia? Or are you in this struggle to support people or to sabotage the struggle? This is a time when we all should ask ourselves why we are in this struggle. And I stopped to ask myself, partly because I was going to do the piece with these two gentlemen just to show what they're saying. But when I listen to Mr. Sikot speak, he was saying that we all should forget about any other person and be focused on the struggle. When I listened to Tato was saying the same thing. That he has made mistakes. He has supported Sako. He has built him up. But he had to make a U-turn after he realized that he was climbing the wrong tree. For me, I've been in this long enough to know what I want, and sometimes consciously or unconsciously, I just can look through people and I know who is real and who is not real. And if I don't know them, I'll give them a chance. I'll tell you something about Siseko Ayoktabe. That's the one person again I haven't spoken of. When I first heard about Siseko Ayoktabe coming into leadership in the struggle, I made a piece, and in that piece I said, I do not want my leader to be introduced to me. And what I meant by that was that I want my leader to be somebody like Goji Dinka, Professor Carson Anyangwe, Mukong, these people that you've known in the struggle. It shouldn't be somebody who just come from the blue and shot and get to the top. And so I resisted Siseko Ayoktabe. But I also realized that I had no control. I had no control over him being or not being. But I watched the man work. I listened to him talk. I listened with the poise with which he did things. He came in with a little more compromising and generous in his ways. He came in very generous in his ways that I won't. In fact, I thought they were risky to the struggle. And I can actually say now that they were risky. Because some of the people who came in through him, who were appointed by him, like Sako, have become the monsters in the struggle. But the point I'm trying to make was that he came as a stranger, and I ended up actually liking him because of his performance. So I'm going to round this up by saying that what I'm doing here is talking to myself. And I decided to open the camera because we all need to look inside and say, why did we join this struggle? Did we join this struggle because it's fashionable to join it? Examine yourself. Examine where we are in this struggle and make a decision, because this struggle right now is falling apart. We need to do better. Otherwise, La République, if the French end up remaining in control in our territory, Nazi Germany would look like a playground. It would look like a holiday. Okay? So this is a do or die for our people, not for Sako, not for Choayaba. These are the people who are a problem in the struggle right now. They are the people that we have to decide what to do with them before we can decide how we take on the enemy that owns our land.